Terry I've known since, I don't know, what, maybe last summer, sometime in there.
Yeah, I think we met at the Artist Incubator, Black's Artist Incubator.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think it might have been a little bit longer. I feel like it's almost 2 years.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heidi is working on her follow-up fiction novel. She writes huge, heavy books. She's working on the audiobook version of her first book and then starting into the editing process for her second book. So we'll probably talk a little bit about that. Congrats on getting your book out. Also, looks awesome. Glad to see it finally come to life in more ways than one, even with the AR and stuff in there.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to learn about Heidi's process and everything. Doing a big book takes a lot of time and energy and focus.
Yeah. Yeah, I
can't
imagine.
I'm kind of crazy. You kind of have to be, I think. You have to be kind of, dog with a bone, but on steroids. That's the best way I can think to say it right now. Yeah, no, it's hard, right? So you have to be a little bit intense. Right? Dog. I've got a dog on steroids. Not technically, but jumping on me as I speak. Sure, yeah. So I don't know, Michael, where do you want to go today?
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about manuscripts and also distribution, which I think, gets after a few different avenues because for me, and for you currently, since you're working on an audiobook, the stuff that I'm kind of focused on is always trying to have like a multifaceted production, right? Particularly with stuff that's like heavily photographic or trying to make a world come to life off of the page that is maybe in some cases only text. So, and inversely going from photos to just text. So, being able to kind of bend the ideas around into different formats is valuable to me. I'm sure you're kind of finding that for yourself right now as you're doing audiobook production, particularly since you are working with an additional reader also. But, Terry, gosh, how many books do you have out, Terry? Like 8? 9?
I have a total of 12. One is not published here in the U.S., and I can't seem to get rights. I mean, I guess I signed away the rights when I wrote the book, and they paid me for it.
Yeah.
So one is published in the UK, but I have a total of 12. Some I'm co-author on.
Mm-hmm.
And for my own, I have 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thanks.
So let's jump into maybe like this first most recent thing that you've put out and how you developed it, because there's a lot of text in it, but it's also extremely pictorial, AI graphics, but massively photoshopped. And then also you kind of bring some of that stuff to life with augmented reality. And am I right in believing that there's some like vocal performance that's getting activated with the AR as well, or am I wrong there?
You're right. Yes,
Okay.
The poem in the beginning is AR activated, and I don't do the reading. It's all 11 Labs does the reading for me, And yeah, that's the only, like, I think it's like a minute and a half. So that's the only long piece in terms of the AR. But in terms of the text itself, I think there's over 5,000 words in it.
Yeah, a good bit.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that it was a lot more than what I thought there was when I wrote it, which is kind of funny.
And you're at like 175 pages, I think.
Yeah. Amazon always adds like the cover and, interior pages and things like that. It's 173.
It's fun. We're not going to split hairs over that.
I know, but it's so funny when you get people that criticize your books and they come back and said, you said 175 and there's only 173 actual. And I'm like, okay, you're right.
Yeah. Shaf, Robin, if you guys want to come up, grab a mic. We are going to be talking just generally about manuscripts and distribution. Tell us a little bit, Terry, about the developmental process. Where did you start? What did you start with in terms of the pictorial and editorial elements?
So the idea started when, maybe about 2 years or so ago, and I believe it or not, I was sitting in the emergency room with my mom. She wasn't feeling well, and my brain just started to like go into that like survival mode. And I started thinking about, wow, older women, our lives, and where does it take us? And, my mother lives with me because I want her to have a better experience than being alone. So that's really important to me. So a lot of it is like anecdotes or taking those weird anecdotes of, the relationship of older daughter and mother, and the comical things that happen throughout the day and making it into this science fiction-y kind of cosmic world. And even like you'll see there are the Shenanigan sisters in there, which are actually caricatures of my mother and her sister. And when those two get together, it's just, oh my God, look out. So that's where the story kind of developed from an inspirational perspective. And then I started putting together like what kind of images will come out of this and how do they come together and what am I looking for? Am I looking for a traditional science fiction sort of landscape? And I thought, no, I really want this way out, wacky, cosmic science fiction kind of backdrop to it. And I hesitate in even like saying science fiction because, again, the critics will all come after me. They'll say it's more cosmic and fantasy, which they're probably right. And then taking that, all the notes that I had saved on, the wild and wacky adventures of my mother and my aunt and all the different things that happen when you start to age and stuff like that, and putting them into this kind of script and then developing it and modifying it and reworking it. And I wanted it to be more poetic instead of straightforward sort of, just straight, I don't know, it's just straight text, a little more flower language used, and then like pull out the even crazy things, like cupcakes and cats. I mean, the whole thing with cupcakes and cats are when my cat decided he was going to participate in the cupcake making one afternoon and jumped up on the counter, and the next thing you know, you have batter and cat and fur and upset cat because, he doesn't like the taste of batter, of course not, and cupcakes all over the place, those type of things that are happening. So that's basically where it came from. I spent a lot of time with Midjourney on trying to make consistent representations of the characters, and finally I decided I'm not going to get it. It's not going to be a straight pull from Midjourney. I have to bring it into Photoshop, which I'm so much happier when I can actually put my own drawing on top of things. And Michael, I think you saw some of the development of that when we were in the incubator, the artist incubator, and that's basically it. But all the while, like when I'm like writing it and pulling it together visually, I'm thinking like, can some of these be animated, and how can that animation occur, and where can it occur? So I started saving little, or in my, actually, I'm like sort of old fashioned. I use a Word document and load up all the images on there along with the text that correlates to it. And then I start identifying which of the images I think I could bring to life, like either using Runway or something else. And now I'm in the process of thinking like what I want to introduce each of the characters to everybody. So in some ways, I think the characters need to have a little voice. So I'll probably do some lip syncing with Runway, and also use the voiceover from 11 Labs. So that's sort of the process that I've been taking and getting to the manuscript and things like that.
Let's jump over to the distribution side and tell us about where you have made it available so far, where else you're thinking about pushing it, and why you've chosen those places.
Okay, so I use KDP. I've been using KDP for a long time and actually really like it because I don't have to work so hard on doing the distribution. So I could select, like, do I want to have an international distribution or not? And how does that work? Now, for the extended distribution, I don't make much money in terms of royalty. I think I make $1 a book. But again, they're doing all the heavy lifting, and I don't have to worry about that. And that's what I've done so far. So I think KDP has a remarkable dashboard that allows you to control things. And some people may not like that and may need to go, find a publisher that will help them with all the distribution. But if you're a first-time author, and I still consider myself kind of a first-timer, I don't have that large, like massive million-person audience, reading my books yet or looking at my books yet. I still have to do all my own marketing, and KDP has some kind of marketing tools that you can use. I tried it once. I actually am going to try it again with this, with Strange Place, to see, if I can push the volume of sales up on it.
Did you use KDP Direct, or did you use something like Ingram Spark? Because I know you were talking about broader distribution, but as far as I'm aware, KDP only pushes through Amazon.
You're right about that, but I don't have to worry about the international. They do. I know. I've seen my books in Barnes and Noble on their list, and gosh, I think Walmart has some of them too. And I know I didn't push them there. I'm assuming KDP did that, or something happened.
Were you working with a publisher for other stuff though? No, interesting.
No, just KDP. So I'm not quite sure how they got there.
Yeah, I'm not either, because I haven't really looked at that for my stuff. I just kind of assume it's Amazon only, but maybe they have opened up some other options that I am not aware of and should probably look at.
I could be wrong too, or I remember seeing some of my other books on there, and I was really surprised and kind of happy about it. But how do you do it, Michael? How are you doing it?
So, I start doing layout with pages, And whether that's good or bad, the reason why I started with that like a long time ago is because, I'm on Mac OS, but then additionally, to natively load up your stuff to Apple Books, they have a very direct interface from Pages. So it would basically pull from Pages to the web platform used for distribution of audio and video and ebooks and stuff through Apple. I have only done, I think, 2 books directly through there. I think the Chicago 1893 and the first Parks book were pushed that way. I just don't really find the extra work to be worth it through them, as opposed to just primarily using KDP and pushing the traffic there, as opposed to doing a lot of the extra technical work and just dealing with Apple and the approval process there. Now with the audiobook side, when you're using ACX, and Heidi, this will be useful for you because you're kind of in the home stretch on this. When you use ACX, you have to select your title from existing Amazon listings, and then you're going to create a new project on ACX from that. And then when you distribute your audiobook through ACX, it will automatically go to Audible. It will pair it up to your Amazon listing, and it will also get sent out to Apple Books as an audiobook. So right there, you kind of get 3 platforms that it's pushing out to, which is nice. Just in terms of like not having to go and deal with multiple websites or multiple file versions or multiple designs, because everybody has like different design standards and stuff like that. And I had in the past also used Lulu, and I think I've got maybe 2 books up there, the first 2 again. But I think that they had slightly different trade paperback measurements than the standard Amazon KDP entry. So I ended up having to go through and adjust every single page for the books, which, it's 100 plus pages. There were over 100 images, and it was just like a lot of extra work for much reduced like purchasing audience. It's fine if you want to do it, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It's not worth it for me, as opposed to just doing it one time and then pushing the traffic to the one platform. People find the stuff on Lulu and they buy it there, but in terms of like me doing that every year for a paperback, it's just a lot of extra work. But those channels do exist, and the same with KDP. Lulu, the last time I was on there, didn't require you to have a traditional ISBN. I think you were able to use the ASIN, or maybe you just put nothing up there. I don't really remember because it's been, I guess 4 or 5 years now at this point.
My first book was Lulu, and
Okay.
that was back in 2010. And
Wow.
I thought it was an okay experience, but I found that what they did for me, and at that point, I think I actually paid them for help. At that point, I just found like, oh, it's that. Okay, I might as well do it myself. But I think they changed their dashboard a little bit because I just discovered that they owed me money. So for some reason, I wasn't getting my royalty from them. So I just got that after a very long time.
Probably needed to update some
Yeah,
account information or something like that. Would be my
probably.
guess. What did you use to do the layout on Strange Place?
Okay, so this is a funny story, and I think you were there too in the artist incubator. So I remember admitting that I love using PowerPoint for picture books because it's very easy, right? And then I think some folks were like, "You need to use InDesign." So I'm like, "Okay, I'll use it. I've used it for reports and other things, but I've never used it for my own book." So this is the first time I used InDesign to design the book. And I liked some of the features, but the one thing that is a drawback for me is I like to look at the development of all the pages, like sort of, where in PowerPoint you could like go into the slide mode and see everything, all the pages, right? And then you could see the consistency where I couldn't find that in InDesign, and that kind of drove me a little crazy because I was like, am I being consistent? And I had to keep scrolling up or looking at the pages, and those thumbnails are so tiny and things like that. So that was one of my drawbacks.
Heidi, you're using InDesign, aren't you?
Yeah, I use InDesign for the book layout, but I mean, I'm just doing a traditional book. I'm not doing a graphic novel or anything. So, um, it's a challenge. And I mean, and I worked with it for years in publishing. So, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to someone. I think there's a lot easier. Uh, there's a lot of software that's a lot easier to use, but I have a background with it and a certain level of familiarity with it. So I don't know. I mean, it's still challenging for me because you have to come up with style sheets and templates. You have to create them from scratch when you're doing this. So it's I don't know. I use it because it's what I've always used, but I don't know that I would necessarily recommend it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think for text, it's probably overkill. If you're working with graphics, it makes a lot more sense if you're doing like a very dynamic design. For me, it's also general overkill for the stuff that I'm doing because I'm not doing like a lot of really like a lot of overlay text or like picture in picture type of stuff or trying to bend text around images. Like Terry did a lot of that in Strange Places, which makes sense for.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree it's probably overkill, but like I said, I'm just familiar with it. But I kind of think the only thing is it just depends. And I was doing magazine
Yeah.
layout, so yeah, I'm bending image, doing all sorts of stuff that it made perfect sense for in that scenario. I think the reason I stick with it is just comfort, plus it gives you it doesn't close you in. You know what I mean? I mean, it's harder at first, but if you think you want to do like what Terry's doing with these graphic novels, I mean, you're not you're not it'll make your life easier if you start moving in that direction. I think that's fair to say. But if you're just doing books and kind of straightforward stuff, it can really torture you. I think I would be honest about that.
I completely agree. I did a marketing book, AI for Brands, and I actually avoided all that and just used Word. And Word was amazing. Aside for some of like there were graphics in it, but I made sure that the graphics were only black, grayscale or black and white, and they were on individual pages so I didn't have the problem with having to adjust the text. But it worked incredible. I was so surprised, and I probably will do like I have to finish the next volume of Laundry Gate by the end of the year. So I will probably just, instead of like using the KDP tools, and I'll just use the Word document and do it that way. So much easier.
If no one's told you today, Laundry Gate is a terrific title.
Thank you.
Hey, George, how
Does
are you?
everyone live to the end?
Oh, here we
Some do, some don't. No, it depends on what you mean by living.
Be warned, George likes to kill all the protagonists. That's his theme.
You're,
That and get into it with his friends.
you're not alone, George. I think I like to do that too.
It's a pleasure to be in the space with the one person who might actually know more about Star Trek than I do, and that's Dan Leckie.
George, you working on anything new?
Well, no. I've got the writer's block. I haven't written anything. Oh, it's been several months. I started my second novel and I've been toying with it, and I'm absolutely procrastinating with just like my career and my life and fooling around on here and torturing his hitch slapping, getting him to admit that he has low IQ and he's a narcissist and he has no business running a Twitter space, just like, hobbies.
What did you use to create and distribute your first book?
My first work was a play, so I wrote it as a PDF and handed the script to the players. I didn't use any kind of digital mastery whatsoever. It's not available for sale.
Oh, that's too bad. Have you thought about converting it over?
It's a comedy about a knife fight in Chinatown and the criminal trial that follows it. It's very funny. Did I think about? No. I mean, maybe one day I'll just... I hadn't really thought of trying to monetize it. In fact, like, my specific goal was not to make money on it, which helps me get past a lot of production hurdles.
What about the performance of the play?
Yeah, so we did that at like basement prices. I think we sold tickets for $10.
Did you film it or anything?
Nope, I didn't film it. No.
That's too bad.
No, it was fun though. We liked it. Yeah, no, there are a lot of like little meddling theater companies full of barristers that put on like community theater. This wasn't exactly like that, but there's one every year just called the Lawyer's Play, because there's so many lawyers out there who would just rather be on stage. But they almost always do Shakespeare. It's almost never an original creation of one of the council.
Well, they're playing the hits.
Hey man, you can't go wrong with Shakespeare in the Park. Like, Shakespeare in the Park is always a good time.
Yeah, there was I have been to a few Shakespeare in the Park performances in different areas. It's fine. I don't mind seeing local folks turning out a production of it. But I think maybe, theater and additionally like local music right now is probably, getting lost in the shuffle of things. This is actually, I made this point with somebody recently because we were talking about podcast distribution and how you can basically distribute as much video and audio, spoken word audio podcasts as you want for free. But if you make a record and you want to distribute it on like Apple Music and Spotify or Pandora and the rest, those services that offer subscriptions, you actually have to pay to get your stuff on there. Bandcamp, you don't. You can put your things up on Bandcamp for free. but that is kind of a rarity. And also a reduced audience. People are streaming there, but they don't necessarily, those streaming numbers don't generate revenue. Not that Spotify streams generate a lot of revenue unless you're doing big numbers, but I just find that to be a big negative in general, in the sense of, like, if you want to get into music, or kind of push your career forward. And it sounds kind of like the same thing in terms of like local theater. Really a lot of stuff that goes up on the stage in general. It's a tough road. I feel like there are a lot less open stages for performance than there were in the past. I feel like, when I was a kid and playing music all the time, I could find a stage somewhere to play, every night of the week if I was willing to make a little effort for scheduling and maybe travel. But like now, even looking for like open mics and stuff, I just see it happening a lot less. And I think that kind of trickles down in a lot of different ways. I find a lot of analogs to that.
You know what it is? It's like this generation hasn't grown up with the acoustic guitar and the Matchbox 20 covers. Like, they're not like living out their depression on a 6-string the way we did.
Yeah, Dave, Dan, I don't remember who came up first or who raised their hand first, but
Dan was up first, and then David. I would just say too, I think everyone does everything on the internet now. It's like people have music spaces on here, But Dan, go ahead.
I thought it was really interesting, Michael, what you were saying about like music distribution, and I wondered like if it's the same to do with audiobooks, because obviously like there's music streaming platforms or audio streaming platforms. I guess one exception is Audible, obviously. And from what I've heard, Bandcamp, you can like decide like how much you're going to charge people if they would like to listen to your music rather than the streaming platforms themselves, which I found do pay out and do add up to stuff, but is incremental, as you were saying. Yeah.
So, yeah, you can distribute audiobooks at no cost. They don't charge you to upload your content and put it on their platform. ACX is the one for, like I said before, like Audible, Amazon. It will push to Apple Books. I am finding that I'm not loving Spotify's distribution of audiobooks in terms of the monetization aspect, in the same way that I don't love their monetization and relationship with musical artists. It's very much the same. Bandcamp will allow a user to stream a song 3 times, I believe, at no cost. So, beyond that, if you want to purchase the album or the track, that's available to you, but it is not necessarily a streaming platform in the same way that you would think about like Tidal, Pandora, Spotify, Apple Music. They are really, I think, pushing more towards the being a marketplace and facilitating purchases. So I have a few albums up there of collections of music and stuff like that from over the years, but it's not something that I work too hard on to promote. David?
Hey, thanks for letting me take the mic. I live in Chicago, and I noticed right before the pandemic that there were still a lot of opportunities for people to go to readings to read their work or perform. And after the pandemic, that's been shut down, even in organized situations. Like, I'm a poet primarily, and there was always a reading going on somewhere in the city. But now it's all just been almost eradicated. And I think we're back in a situation where we can reestablish these things. So I don't think it's, this isn't you can't monetize this, obviously, very easily unless you're like a street performer. But there are opportunities to create, I think. So maybe it's naive of me to say this, but I mean, there's hope that we can create opportunities, right? If you're not going to work directly with a publisher, you can find ways of building opportunities. Wouldn't you think so?
Well, I guess there's two sides to the distribution conversation, right? Like, we're kind of talking about distributing performances and then also distributing finished work content. Initially the idea was to talk about distributing finished work content, media. But at the same time, I've got a lot of years of being a live musician, and securing gigs, producing the performance, promoting the performance, maintaining those relationships with the venue and like fans, attendees, things like that, all reflect the same skill set and tools that you use for creating and distributing books, promoting books. It looks very much the same to me. The cycles maybe are a little bit different. As a musician, you could play 2 to 4 times or more a week, and you can kind of space out where those performances are. Say you're playing in different cities, or you're kind of playing different states, and really kind of getting around. The internet is like an open venue at all times, and people find you from wherever they're coming from, and it kind of inverts that relationship a little bit, where you could play on the internet and stream yourself performing, and people kind of come to you in that way. What's up, David?
I'm just confused. I'm trying to learn. So obviously I don't have an answer, but to me, a book, the content of a book is not performative in the way that a recording or like a live performance would be.
Can be.
So, is there even, can you market them in the same way? Or
I mean, promotions and marketing are the same. It's the same line of thinking regardless,
Yeah. So, I mean, because I think of, I guess maybe I'm really behind the times. I don't know how many other people in this room are just like, if you are a musician, you probably have more collaborative skills than your typical poet or author does, because you're working with other musicians on a regular basis. But I just,
that's not always the case.
well, I wouldn't say always the case, but I'm not coming from this perspective as a collaborator. So,
well, maybe that is an extra vector for you to consider. How you can potentially collaborate on performance, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the actual piece that you're performing. It very well might be saying, like, can we create an event out of these groups of performers to where we're, we've got a venue, we're doing promotion together, trying to raise awareness for the scene that we're creating, driving foot traffic into this venue, whatever it might be, helping to facilitate, a rise in revenue for that venue, potentially making a little bit of money for yourself if you're charging at the door, or you're getting a cut of, whatever the venue's sales might be. They were more apt to offer those kind of deals in the past that I don't see happening so much anymore. But that's not to say it's not out there. Maybe it is. But yeah, I think that in that sense, it is kind of on you and those who would be your collaborators to consider how to utilize the resources and the assets that you either have or have access to or can generate a relationship with to manufacture, a scene to hang out on and get people to participate in. When I was a kid, there were always some venues that would allow us to perform there, either at no cost or very low cost. And it would be, in some cases, a total wash, break-even scenario. But in lots of cases, it was, revenue generating, not only for the venue, but the performers. And that is huge for any band, kind of getting rolling. Because it costs money to go there, it costs money to perform in general. Your instruments, your strings, your microphones, your amplifiers and drum heads and all the rest. It's not free to be a musician. You might say, well, I do it for the love of the music. Well, I can love playing music at home for free or at a lower cost than my time and the expenses of traveling to a venue across the state or something. So yeah, I would think both economically and practically about how to spin up events or a scene that is going to work for you. And if you're not seeing the things that you saw before, maybe start there. Or if there's some new idea that you have, find a way to manufacture that so that you can bring it into the world for people. We lost Dan. He had a question. I'm guessing he got a call. We'll probably be back in a minute or two, my guess. Dave, do you have books out?
I have a book completed, actually, that I wrote with another person, and we had a personality conflict, so it sort of lays in dormant.
That's unfortunate.
Because I really love it. It's a passion project, and I am working on a new book, and I'm a poet. I have some stuff published, but not a lot. But this is actually very interesting to me. I want to learn new things because I think this is a good time for creators, actually. And I actually think that space is a really good place for, creators to create opportunities. So I'm glad that I'm on your space because it's very interesting.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. Have you thought about gathering up your poetry and putting that out as a book?
I have, and I want to get a really good editor to make it look, perfect before
I mean, editing is one thing. Maybe you're talking about layout?
The layout, I never thought about that, but yeah. I mean, I do post some of my poetry once in a while, but I think we live in a prose world.
I don't know. I guess it depends.
No, I think that's okay though. I'm not one of these people that's angry because I feel like I'm not understood. So I also think that fiction is an equal art to poetry.
Sure. Yeah,
So
but folks hanging out,
yeah.
if you want to talk about your work, your manuscript, distributing it, grab a mic and come on up and hang out. We've done previous workshops, and we're kind of going along the process of producing our work and then getting it out into the marketplaces. So above you'll see a handful of tweets that are posted up there. All the way to the left is Terry's most recent release that she just got out the door. Next to that is The Fall of Tartaria. For folks that have been hanging around since the spring, that is now out on Amazon Prime. It's on Audible, and the ebook is up on Amazon as well. So that's kind of like a very multifaceted release where you turn a piece into a collection of works in that way. Let's see, what else do we have up here? Arches, I just put out yesterday, remake of an older video, but using AI. Dave, I know you don't like AI, but cope and seethe. I put it out anyway.
It's okay. I don't like people that use AI to create source material. You want to use AI to polish and distribute your work, like as an editor, a one-step editor, which I actually don't recommend.
Yeah.
But I think that AI in technology, like in science and health matters, is perfectly fine and acceptable. But I don't think that art can be created by AI. I think that's a human activity. That's my philosophy. But I don't want to take over your space. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Yeah. We're just jamming. As it is right now, all those AI tools require an oracle, and that might change in the future. At that point in time, it might be that, your opinion on the AI being the source of some inspirational work might change. We'll see. Heidi, where are you at on your audiobook? Where are you at on volume 2 of Songless? What's happening here? What are we?
Okay, so I finished the second book. It's about the same length as the first book, so that means I'm going to be editing it, which is and I'm trying to finish up the audiobook. It's I don't know if I want to really talk about it here, to be
Get into the
perfectly
grime
honest.
on the book production. I said,
What?
get into the grime on the book production. What's going on over there? I'm teasing you. You don't have
talk
to.
about
It's fine.
here. I've got half of the audio done for it, and I may be needing to find another. I'll just say this, and I'm looking at two different ways of doing the other half of the audio. So I literally don't want to get into it here, but that said, yeah, I mean, my novels, it's 400 pages. So, I mean, how many hours of audio is that, Michael? Would you just guess? I'm thinking like 40
Oh,
something.
man.
12
Yeah,
hours.
really, it varies on the pace of the read. But yeah, you're going to be looking at you don't
Rough.
usually do by page count as much as like word count.
I
That's one
think
of
maybe
the.
it could be somewhere between 10 and 12 hours.
Yeah.
That's probably about right. So it's 118,000 words and some
Yeah, and I would say
change.
that's pretty fast, actually,
Yeah.
in general. Because
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So so I'm working out how that second half is going to play, and maybe there'll be two different versions of it. That kind of thing. I'm not, that's getting played out right now. So there's that. And I need to start editing the second book. I've gone through the first chapter. I'll tell you guys I did this just partially out of curiosity, partially as an experiment because and you can judge me all you want. I took my first chapter of book 2 and threw it into Grok and asked it to give me some feedback like a beta reader would.
You know, I'm sitting
And
right here, right? Like.
yeah. Do you hate me now? No. Are you judging me, George? Are you going to block me?
If I haven't blocked Hitch Slap, what do you think? I actually like you. Like, what are the? Come
No,
on.
I was curious. I mean, because we talk about AI, so I'll say, I was curious what it would do, and
Yeah, but,
I
you're
hate
still creating the content, though, Heidi. So
what's
you're
that?
still creating the text. I mean,
No, it's a full chapter. It's written.
yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's a written book. It's a first draft, but it's a full. Again, another 120,000 words. I mean, obviously the chapter isn't that long. I put in so yeah. I mean, let's throw this out there because here I did this because I was curious what would happen, and so it threw it in there, and it gave me some actually useful feedback, which was very interesting to me, and I think it did in many ways help me sort of fix that opening paragraph. Now it didn't. I mean, I didn't ask it to help me with the great first line. I already knew what I wanted to do there, that kind of thing. Whether it's great or not, I don't know, but it definitely is the one I want. And I didn't ask it about that. I didn't ask it about specifics. I asked it about generalizations, like what what is working, what is not working. And it made some valuable, it brought up a very good point that I think a beta reader might have brought up too. So, I mean, it didn't fix it for me. I fixed it. I figured out how to fix it. I figured out what I needed to do. And when I say fix, it was more that I needed to just add a little twist because all of the stuff was there. There was just a little piece I needed to insert and and then a section that I deleted because I was like, this is stupid. I don't like this. I knew what I was trying to do, but it wasn't working. So it went and I put in a little twist that sort of filled out the chapter. So I don't know. What do you guys think of that? Did I, am I a heretic?
No, I'm fine with it.
Have I transgressed it blasphemy?
No,
Let's throw that out there. Oh, thanks, Dan.
No, I think
I've only called one person a heretic today. He was pretending to speak in tongues, so you're safe.
Oh my God! Not
he's doing that thing where like he lost the keys to his Honda, but he says it really fast.
No, the speaking in tongues thing. I don't get me. I can't have the conversation here.
We'll be like, dude, where's my car?
Oh, it's the keys to my Honda.
Oh my God.
I was going to say congratulations on finishing the second book, Heidi. And also I wondered, like, when I joined the space, basically came on as a listener, you were talking about different people talking about like the technology for distribution, and I wondered like if it come under discussion yet, like what you might use for distributing books to beta readers. I found I think I can't even remember. I know it's a Google program, but for the minute I can't remember which Google program it is. But I found it really helpful because like beta readers can leave notes and everything.
Yeah, so you're probably talking about
a few options.
Google Docs. I use Dropbox Paper for that because it allows for the same thing, and I just find the interface to be more stripped down and basic, less stuff in the way. I mean, if you really need a legitimate, Word-like program, then Google Docs is the better one. If you just need something very basic that allows you to create comments and a little bit of basic formatting, I like Dropbox Paper for that. I've been using it for a long time. And it has a standalone app that's just, for that particular function, which I like. You know, I think like whatever your process is that way, if you're developing it, you know, do the things that work for you so that it makes it easier to get the work done or to get people involved. So, you know, in the same way that with Google Docs, you know, Dropbox Paper, you can invite people to have access at different levels. You know, their comments kind of turn into threads that are associated with segments of selected text, which I like a lot. Heidi's used it, you know, with I think Tartaria. And
Yeah, I'll
yeah, go ahead.
just gonna say, like, I know when I worked on my first book with a developmental editor I worked with, we used just Word and did the, you know, the comments you can put in with Word,
Yeah.
you know, so, and it was, I thought, useful for, because so she would put everything in as a comment so I could accept or reject, right? So that I could go through everything she was doing, and I thought it was a good way of tracking it. But I think most of I'm not as familiar. I've done a little with Google Docs, but I think most of those word processors, whatever we're calling them these days, have those options, you know, to be able to comment on sections. And I think that's super, super useful. But in editing and stuff, I mean, you absolutely have to use something like that.
And
So
Dropbox Paper will track changes from any particular session. So you can like look through and see what changes were made affiliated with, you know, a dated session. So you know, say you're working on something for long periods of time, it'll track additions or, you know, things you might have cut and stuff like that. Dave, you got your hand raised.
Hey, yeah, I didn't mean to like step in here and act like the troll Luddite, so I apologize to anyone who. I'm not trying to like squash AI completely, but I think that like when the way Heidi used it actually is a very acceptable and legit experiment because she's still the driver.
Yeah.
I don't like, and I'll be brief about this. I apologize, Michael. What I don't like is people who just use straight up generative AI to create an entire text, because I just think it's poor storytelling.
It is, and they probably don't get too far with it because it doesn't really speak to anyone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's perfectly fine. It's another tool in the tool belt for a writer who doesn't have access to a team of editors to use the AI that comes along with Microsoft 365, for example, or to use Google. But it's not writing Heidi's books. It's
Right.
just
No,
she's experimenting with it.
No, David, and I didn't think you meant that. I mean, I threw it out there. I mean, you know, I'll try stuff. I think it's really important to try stuff. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not, but at least then you know, right? And I think ultimately you're right. There's a boundary we're going to have to draw with AI where, you know, and I think it's important to start figuring out what that is. And I think it's important to start, you know, messing with it because we're going to be using it one way or
another.
Well,
my brother works in computers, and he said to me recently on a phone call, you have no choice over the matter. It's here, and it's going to be part of the world around you. So I can bury my head in the sand, or I can create an autonomy for myself as a creative person and defend that.
Well, I will say this, and someone said this, I was in another space, and I can't remember what it was, but this was an important point about AI, is that if good people are feeding it, it'll start functioning for good, you know? So I think people need to feed it. I think people need to get involved, you know, dare I say, have a relationship with it, because as you said, it's not going away. We're all going to use it, and you don't want it to be only used by people who are there for nefarious reasons, right? You want it to be used by people who are there, who are attempting to make what they're doing better and make it better in return just by their presence.
Well, I think my true big criticism comes from the fact that it's a corporate tool that is putting out really bad content that is saturating the market, and it's actually people are accepting it, readers and listeners.
Yeah, but Dave, you know what? I'm going to jump on this because you know what? That's functionally no different than when marketing companies have been hiring people from the third world to turn out slag for corporations as well. It's no different. It is no different.
I have to
Well, you're wrong.
You're not. You don't want me to debate with you, okay?
I'm just telling you that, like, I've worked in that. I've done both.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not human.
It doesn't matter. If it's crap, it's crap. Whether it's crap coming from a human or it's crap coming from silicon intelligence, it's crap.
All right, so I'm going to leave your space because it's your space.
That's fine. Yeah. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, crap is going to be crap. And if you are trying to sell it, it does not matter where it's coming from. On the other side of things, if you're using AI to ideate, it's no different than having a conversation with another person. If the person is not intelligent, then you're going to get a bad conversation. If you are not intelligent, you're going to have a bad conversation with AI. And it's not going to then, in turn, give you additional ideas to think on and develop and incorporate into your work. I've used AI a lot to basically work through outlines or create scripts for things and build them up in a very organic way to where, like, I've taken a large amount of text from them, said, okay, these points are good, but none of this is well said. Now, these topics I want to actually utilize, but none of the text makes it over into the final version. I think that's a very good way of using AI. George, you got your hand raised. What's going on?
Yes, I've written something. Can I share something brief with you? This is a short story about a woman who writes with the assistance of ChatGPT.
It better not be about me, George.
Of course not.
Did you write
the following program contains mature. I have to give, like, the content warning is like, although like these events may be based on current events, no real person is depicted. She hovered over the keyboard, the cursor blinking at her with an urgency she no longer shared. The AI had generated thousands of words, flawless, efficient, soulless. Her fingers paused, trembling, not from indecision, but from clarity. She typed the command, the one she had been avoiding for months. Shut down. A prompt flashed on the screen. Are you sure you want to terminate? This action is irreversible. The machine's language, still precise even in its final moments, almost felt human, but it wasn't. She stared at the words, feeling the weight of what they asked of her. It wasn't about severing a connection. It was about choosing herself. With a long exhale, she pressed enter. The screen went dark. The silence that followed was immense. Yet it wasn't the suffocating kind she feared. It was full of possibility. For the first time in years, she felt alone with her thoughts, and they weren't so frightening. She opened a new document. and her fingers slowly finding their rhythm again. The words weren't perfect, but they were her own. In their imperfection, she found a truth the machine could never reach. This time, the story wasn't about the end. It was the beginning.
Thank you, George. I see your point, and I think everyone here agrees with that point.
So what I did was I went to ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, I'm writing a novel. Can you help me with the ending? Can you write an ending for a woman who's writing a novel and decides to kill her AI at the end of the novel? And that's what it gave me. So in a way, I've disproven my own point because I think that was actually like a baller ending.
It really was, and that is the blessing and the curse of AI is it can be completely, you completely depend on it. I mean, you totally can. It's like, and honestly, there are writing scenarios where I would just rather have it do the work. I mean, especially when, like Michael's talking about these corporate things, what's the difference? I mean, there's a lot of stuff where you could just have it throw it out for you. I like using it. I think one of the things, to me, I think one of the things you can consider using it for is to improve the work you're actually doing. Because I find it, like I said, I found it to be insightful, and just like you would find a good beta reader at picking out what you might have missed putting in, or what's lacking. Because we all know that when you're writing, it all may be there, but maybe you just didn't bring a certain point to the surface, and it picked that out for me. So this is the thing I would consider. But yeah, I mean, it can be disturbingly good. I put a prompt in once. I made it into ChatGPT. I said, write, this scenario in the style of Cormac McCarthy, and it did, and it was painfully good. It was like, holy crap, I mean, so you could have it write you a whole new Cormac McCarthy novel. You could have it, I mean, it's amazing this, because it has enough information about him and his writing to be able to do it. It won't be him though. It's, you could probably have it write a Shakespearean play. That'd be interesting. We finally found the monkey who can do it. I don't know. It's interesting. You just have to sort of maintain your thing. But the thing it can't do though is I don't think it can come up with a new creative idea.
Yeah.
It can only come up with what already exists in many ways, even though it did give you that delightful, that baller ending, as you say, because that exists throughout. Think about every sci-fi novel there is. That's always the point. I mean, that's, the end of Star Wars, use the Force, turn off the machine. I mean, that's what it gave you.
Yeah, what was I going to say? You said something important, and then I was going to. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, it wrote the monkey. I liked my thing. We found the monkey.
Yeah. So you're right. It's very good when you give it the subject and the format. So if I tell it, I want you to rewrite the Billy Joel song "We Didn't Start the Fire" based on current events news featuring Taylor Swift, it will do that for me in a heartbeat. But yeah, you're exactly right. If I just tell it, hey, write me something good, that'll baffle it.
Has anyone tried any of the other tools like Copy AI? I've been using Copy AI since 2020. And the more I use it, the more it has an understanding of the nuances that I need, which I like a lot. And also, I could toggle between OpenAI and Claude. So I could change the where I'm getting the which AI I'm using. So I think that's a really interesting way of using it.
I use 3 or 4 different models.
Yeah, it really has expanded that. Yeah.
Have you used what is it, Sonorite or Pseudowrite?
I find Sonorite to be a little bit too heavy on. Doesn't it require coding? Like I have to code?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, it doesn't?
Not that I'm aware of.
One of them required coding, and I'm like, oh God, I've got this idea. I've got to get it out of my brain, and I don't want to sit there and have to code everything.
No, that would be.
So, no, I haven't tried it. I know, didn't Black do his whole thing in
Yeah. Yeah, he's been working on Syncretica with that. And I'm pretty sure Chris Hackett has used it a fair bit as well. He's far more into Claude than I don't even know if I've used Claude, actually, at any point.
I've used it, and I actually liked it. It's, I don't know, I find it a little more sharper than what OpenAI has to offer in terms of,
Yeah, I prefer it over ChatGPT, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that ChatGPT has, I think it's going to keep getting better as they introduce new models, but I think that like we get a new model released, it has such penetration into like the mind space and production that we very quickly find its weak points because of how much work it's doing for so many people. And it very quickly doesn't necessarily become outdated, but we expose its rough edges more rapidly than a lot of the other platforms and models because they're just not doing as much heavy lifting out in the world, just across the board. I would say so many people use ChatGPT that at this point, there have been like marketing companies, SEO companies that have integrated into their workflow and kind of gotten their hands slapped on it because of how it's been applied for a number of reasons. Going back to the same point as earlier, like they're just turning out slag and they're effectively doing it at scale because it's a computer. But it's no different than when they were turning out slag, from a bunch of actual writers who were being paid a penny a word. Again, just producing crap to toss up onto the internet.
So, Michael, can I ask you something? Are you ChatGPT?
Emma,
are you an AI?
I am not, but I would assume that most of the stuff that I'd written prior to whatever its training date for the model was created. A lot of the stuff that I've written for clients and my own personal stuff has been incorporated into that training model, though perhaps not heavily weighted.
Honestly, the only reason why I don't use it like professionally is I'm mortified that someone might detect that I was using it.
Yeah, but see, we're getting a lot of like false positives on organic writing as well at this point, to where they're creating these tools that are looking at legitimately written material and saying it was written by AI. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I just jumping in on that. I know that happened to a lot of the kids at my son's high school. They were getting accused of plagiarism because the AI was misreading it. Because there's such they're writing essays for school on the same subjects that a million other people have written essays for school on. So now it's being tagged as plagiarism and stuff. So it's that's one of the problems is anything could be tagged that way. Absolutely anything.
I've written like chapters of a novel and fed it into an AI detector. I did some research about like what AI detectors are available, and I thought like one of the most it seemed to be one of the most reliable ones. Is called Winston AI, and fed that into that, and still, as you were saying, it comes up with like false positives. Even though I've written, and I know that I've written like an entire chapter myself, it will think that it's been written by AI.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but the only way is through at this point. I think that we're going to continually see silicon intelligence kind of permeating many facets, if not all facets, of creative work, of business intelligence. And, it's only once everybody gets upset about it enough that we can initiate the Butlerian jihad.
I think I do agree with David that there is a difference, and I think like that difference is that an AI is soulless. So what it'll produce is soulless. But I respect your opinion about it, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, is it soulless? Questionable.
Well, I think the overreaching point was that there's a lot of, just business writing that's designed to be soulless. And I don't know. That's my opinion of it. And it's done on purpose because it just wants to sell you something or make a point. It doesn't want to ignite your passions like, say creative writing does, or entertain you. It's got a whole different goal. So, it is what it is. I'm not laying judgment on it. I mean, marketing exists for very good reasons. It's just to think that I just think you had a point. It's like, does it matter if AI does it?
There's very good content marketing out in the world. There's lots of brands and entities who are creating work that does speak to us, whether it's right out of the gate, say, like the Budweiser frogs in the 90s, or if it's right, or if it's a nostalgia factor like Coca-Cola with polar bears and Santa Claus. These are content marketing components, whether people want to recognize them as such or not. And somebody is writing that stuff. Somebody is ideating on those things, generating that work. And that stuff is in the machine as well. If we're able to interface with this stuff in a way, and I see Terry saying 100% because she, put together a book on branding and marketing using AI. There's got to be a way to get out these soulful components from the databases.
If you think there's so little difference, a question I'm wondering is, when was the last time you saw an AI produced piece of writing that included typos?
I use Grammarly, and it has errors regularly.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote a little something. I got on a Twitter or an X post this morning, and I ran it through Pro Writing Aid, and it was actually going to introduce errors. So, I mean, yeah.
Well, that's fantastic.
I was like, I mean, I'm trying to think. It was, oh yeah, it missed a possessive comma. It wanted to take it out and change it. It was crazy. I was like, wow, this is like just completely wrong.
I hate how much it inserts errors. I'll be typing along and I'll use I'll refer to a well as in like a hole in the ground that fetches water beneath the water table, and it will change it to WE''LL every time.
Oh, that happens to me whenever I post things on here now. Half the time I have to, if I don't check, it introduces words. It does the wheel and well. Oh my God. Or the there. It always picks.
Yeah, I typed
Yeah.
sola scriptura to one of my Protestants friends, and it auto-corrected to Solace, Solace, Scriptura, and she congratulated me on inventing a new doctrine.
Congratulations.
Sola Scriptura is when you read the Bible and also give them tea and sympathy.
Yeah, you have to watch quotation marks too. It does funny things with quotation marks and where it puts it sometimes, and I'm like, oh my god.
But these are problems that we've had for a long time, in general. I would say autocorrect on iOS has been ducking us over for plenty of years at this point.
See what he did there?
Maybe I am the AI. So, yeah, I think that, like, if you want to be fully organic in your writing, you still have that's still viable and an open path to you. Like I said, I write, all myself a lot. And then there's times where, again, the reason why it's called Chat GPT is because you're having a conversation with it. It's not necessarily intended to be a fully fleshed output. It's really a conversational tool to expose more ideas and not necessarily to just hand you over some thing that you should toss up on KDP or Amazon. Like, there's lots of people doing that. And in fact, I know we've talked about this in the past, but like, they have instituted a new limit on how many books you can publish in one day, which is madness. Just in general, just the idea of publishing more than 3 books as an individual is insane on any given day.
Yeah, and then you get George Martin. What's his problem?
Yeah, I'm of the belief that he's just sitting on the books. They're already done. He just is.
Oh no. There's no way. He's. I'm with you that he's sitting on the project, but there's no way he's finished the books.
I think he might. I think he's just waiting.
He wanted to kill. He wanted to destroy the end of the TV series or something.
Well. So not to get too deep into this.
He did.
But I think he fears betrayal too much. Like, there's so much betrayal in his books that I think he would fear that if he wrote the book, someone would leak it.
It's sitting on an air-gapped computer. That's what he writes on.
Trust me.
He writes on, like, doesn't he write on, like,
a Commodore 64 or something?
That's it. Yeah, he writes on some old computer that isn't even hooked up to the internet.
The whole project is on a 3.5-inch floppy disk.
Yeah.
Older.
I mean,
5-inch floppy with that Commodore.
The betrayal theme, I'll give you that, George. You make a good point about his fear of betrayal. I mean, I don't know, but that's an interest. I don't know. I think, how many words does he say he writes a day? Doesn't he write very few? He's just not a fast writer. You must know, Dan. I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering about your first songless book. I was wondering, is that physically, like, because I know, like, it's on Amazon as digital copies, but I wondered, is that physically available?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how did you manage to do that?
This goes back to I did it with InDesign. So Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator. So the book, the layout is all in InDesign. And again, we had this discussion at the beginning of this that I wouldn't. I use InDesign because I used it in publishing. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Michael's right. It's totally overkill. I mean, but I'm a glutton for punishment. I guess I do everything on hard mode. So I did that on hard mode. But then the cover design I did with Photoshop and Illustrator, using some photographs and drawings that I sort of layered in there. And so no, it's all available. So that's how I did it. And there are easier ways to do it. Although I think, Michael, Terry, anyone else, would you agree that you should probably, for art, that Illustrator and Photoshop are definitely worth learning they're definitely worth the effort.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love Photoshop. So
yeah, Photoshop for sure. Illustrator, if you're a legit designer, you're going to have to know Illustrator. I am not great with Illustrator. Probably not very good with Photoshop either, to be honest with you.
I'm not terribly. I'm not terribly good with Illustrator. I'm not a graphic designer, but I used it enough to kind of know how to get what I want out of it, and I can definitely do words and letters with it. The images and stuff, like I said, I can color balance, I can do all that stuff. I can't draw real well with Illustrator. Can't do that real well. Just not. I spent a lot of time trying to do that with the cover. And I ended up actually using, like, if you're familiar with the cover of my book, there's 2 eyes on the cover. Those I generated in Midjourney, and I highly edited them, so it was sort of a face and edited down to what I needed. And so it's, that's all that was really AI on the cover. So I don't really have to say anything about it. But I think I even did. Because I'm like, sadly, I'm an honest person. It gets in your way in life, but what do you do? Again, playing on hard mode. But
that's a question for you, Heidi. When you were putting out Songless, had they already instituted the 3 questions about using generative AI on KDP, or had they not done that yet?
It was on there, but it was, the text is not there's no AI in the text. But there's, I couldn't get the eyes right. And I really wanted those eyes on there. It's kind of like, it's kind of because I'm such a doofus, I read books. It's kind of my nod to Gatsby, if you must know. But
yeah, so that for people that are going to use KDP, if you're trying to release your book on there, in the past, they never asked about generated content or using generative AI tools, but now there are 3 questions that are involved there. One is for the manuscript, one is for internal images that are used, and then one is for the cover. So I think all of,
and it's by percentage.
It's not by percentage. It's just asking, like, did you use it at all, or did you heavily Photoshop it? I don't think they ask percentage at all.
Well, that's what I meant. And so for me, I that was my response, was heavily Photoshopped, which is the truth. It's heavily, if you look at literally the only AI on there are the 2 eyes, and that is, what portion of the cover.
I wouldn't have guessed that they were AI, but again, like, it doesn't really matter to me. Like, my fiction covers are, I think all of the fiction covers that I've done have been AI. And there's some things that are not good on them. There's also quite a bit of Photoshop on them as well. But at some point, I just get to the point where it's like, I'm not trying to, like, make all of this, from the ground up and fix every little, like, nook and cranny of this image. Most of it's there, most of it's right. And, like, when I look back at images from the past, there's always weird stuff in there. You can even have weird things occur within photography. So I just don't really find that to be a hang up for me.
Well, it shouldn't be. If it's, with you as the sort of the maestro, shall we say, if you're the magician, then the trick, it doesn't matter how the trick is done, shall we say. I think that's kind of the way to look at it. And it's like, for me, like, if I go back to my eyes, there was 2 things I'm doing there. They're an important element in the story. And they're also, I couldn't help myself. I had to make a nod to Gatsby. So.
Dan, what do you got?
So I was wondering about like international distribution. Like, if someone in Italy or Australia or wherever wanted to get hold of a physical copy of the first Songless book, would they be able to do that? I also wondered, like we talked about Bandcamp. I wondered, like, is there any equivalent for writers? That would be very similar to that.
Well, I would say KDP is the equivalent to that, and it goes in a couple different directions because you can do an ebook, which would be, Bandcamp isn't going to physically produce a CD for you or a vinyl for you. But with KDP or Lulu, you can do print on demand for physicals. So I think Lulu does hardback now. But I know that KDP does. They will do paperback and hardback. Now, is that available in every single market across the globe? I don't think so. I know it is available in a lot of them. And when you're creating it, when you get to the pricing, it'll also give you access to the different markets. You know what? Let me pull it up real quick, just so I'm saying the right stuff here. So let's look at.
You, I recall when you put it out, you have the option to say whether it will be sold internationally.
Yeah,
I mean Europe you'll sell to.
But we're particularly talking about print on demand. So like here I'm looking at it, there are marketplaces for the Chicago 1893 paperback for the US, the UK, Denmark, France, Spain, Italy, the Netherlands, Poland, I'm guessing, SE, which I am not 100% sure what that is off the top of my head. Could be Sweden, could be South Korea, who knows. Japan, CA, which I also Canada. Yeah,
Come on.
Canada's the 51st state, but we're absolutely going to annex you. And then Australia.
Don't make me go 1812 on you again and burn down your White House.
Yeah, well, that wasn't Canada in the grand scheme of things.
Who do you think the Canadians are, man?
The 51st state.
We're the ones who burned the White House.
We weren't even Canada then.
Someone needs to learn the history of Upper Canada and Lower Canada. Here, I'll ask ChatGPT about it, and I'll read you a short story about Louis LaFontaine and the Lower Canada Rebellion.
I would just like to refer you to Andrew Jackson at this point.
Yeah, no. Treaty of the 1812 War. No more battleships on the Great Lakes.
What do you think about the option of using like something like eBay to sell your book?
I think you're going to be on a massively uphill battle on that one, to be honest with you. If you're selling antiquated books, then eBay is probably the way to go. But in the grand scheme of things, like trying to sell your books on eBay, like that, that's not really what they're for. Whereas like Amazon very specifically is.
Plus, there's a cost to using eBay too, where Amazon, there's pretty much no cost. Am I right about that, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, to put your stuff up there, there's no cost. Mm-hmm. To use the platform, I would say that they, extract fees from the sales. So, I mean, they are taking a cut in a sense, but there's no upfront cost.
But you don't have to worry about the actual production of the book and things like that.
Right.
Yeah. Which is, they do all that and they take a chunk for it. So it's like, so if you look at like my paperback, right? I think it's like $16 right now. So I think it's about, you can divide that into 3 pieces. So about, well, let's say it's $15. It'll just for,
roundness.
Each. So $5 of that goes to the production, $5 of that goes to Amazon, and $5 of that goes to me. That's roughly how it breaks down. So I still think it's probably a better deal than eBay, because then I would have to pay to print the book and then ship it and all. I mean, Amazon's handling the shipping for me. And so, they're handling all that stuff. So, it's a pretty fair deal. I guess it's the best deal I'm going to get. And I think, if you were to publish traditionally, you may end up with actually less of a cut because you've got to pay back the loan. Terry, you know about this probably more than us. You have to pay back the loan that they've given you as your, what do they call it? Oh, my mind's blanking. What do they call it?
Royalty?
No,
Not the royalty.
Yeah,
not royalty.
Right.
The first payout you get, which is basically them buying it or / giving you a loan, and you have to pay that back before you start getting royalties. The advance.
That's right. That's right. Sorry. Yeah, I get paid straight out for writing books. Like I just take a big chunk flat rate and that's it, and then let the publisher worry about everything else.
That's one way of doing it. I mean, yeah. I mean, it depends. I mean, do you do that with your fiction, or do you do that with like
Nonfiction? Yeah, nonfiction.
Non the marketing stuff? That makes a lot of sense. I mean, unless you've written, how to win friends and influence people, that probably wouldn't have made sense for that book. But for everything else, it probably does.
Here's another thing too. So Amazon has done their homework very well in regards to the per unit cost of a book. A few years back, I had gone and priced out how much it would cost me to get, 50 or 100 or 1,000 copies of the book produced. And I think it didn't hit the same price as Amazon per unit until I was getting like 100 printed out of the gate, which at that point in time, was still going to cost me, I don't know, like $1,500 or $2,000 or something like that. So in that sense, like you would then have to front all that money to produce your book in the same way that a traditional publisher would. But then you have to move all those units to recoup your investment. Whereas with like KDP, again, there's no cost there. It's just that they are going to take a considerable cut of each unit sold. Now, if you have the sort of scenario like Terry's talking about, where you're getting just a flat rate for having produced the book and turned it over to a publisher, that can be a good deal. Then the other side of it is like maybe you negotiate some kind of back end deal where like if X number of units sell, then you get an additional payout or stipend or royalty on top of that unit. So there's lots of different ways to structure it. I would say it resembles the same thing as any creative distribution deal, whether that's like music or movies or whatever. I have friends who are technically still in debt with record labels for the albums that they put out because they got in advance. And we're not able to recoup that in any way. And so that's the interesting thing about Amazon in the sense of you can very rapidly begin to generate sales there if you can move eyeball traffic to a book or an audiobook or, in my case, I've got the documentary and Tartaria is up on Amazon Prime. So like those are a la carte types of services where, you as a viewer or a reader are buying that unit and they're giving me as the producer of that work, a flat cut of each sale, and I don't have to do anything but create the work and successfully push it through their platform for submission. Dan.
I remember looking into how to use KDP maybe about 5 years ago. I found it very, very sophisticated and complicated. I wondered how difficult it is to use nowadays. If it maybe simplified.
My first book was like 5 years ago, and I found it to be quite easy. I think if you are using the web in general as any sort of creative tool, or as like a web designer, website management in any sense, then KDP is probably going to be really easy for you in that way. It is not a difficult platform, and they don't want it to be, because they want to keep getting new material up there and distributing it and taking a cut off the sales for people that are looking for new material, or for you having an audience that's moving your audience over to the platform to make purchases. So, and that's why they give so many different variations of how you can distribute your work, like Kindle Unlimited or ebook purchase only, paperbacks, the variety of like cover choices and paper and color of print internally, and then having like paperback and hardback. Like, there are just so many variations. One thing they changed kind of recently was with Prime Video, which they're now calling the platform for uploading to Prime Video Slate. In the past, you were able to push stuff through to be included with the traditional kind of like subscriber package. Now, unless you are invited to the other tiers that they offer there, you can only sell. So they, a la carte kind of purchase. Tony, I see you asking about what is KDP. So KDP is Kindle Direct Publishing. It is the platform for distributing ebooks, paperbacks, or hardbacks through Amazon or the Kindle apps and devices. Hopefully that helps.
So basically, if you have a book that you want to sell on Amazon, you do it through KDP. So all of it, right? So it's kind of like it
used to be called Create Space also some years back.
Well, we call it's not it's where the seller uploads their work, basically. Right. It's that part of Amazon, and it's the book part of Amazon. Does that make sense?
I'm just clarifying, like, that KDP used to be called Create Space. Now there is a piece of standalone software called Kindle Create, which is for creating ebooks to package them into, I think, KPF files to upload to KDP.
It's gotten even easier, I think, because you can literally just upload, a EPUB file now, and it'll just translate it directly. And just the type of files you use for an ebook, right? For a regular book, you just upload a PDF file. And I'll tell you, I'm probably not as technically savvy as Michael. And I uploaded my book last year. So the problem I had was with making sure getting the cover right. So it was like fitting it into and they send it back to you and send it back to you. And I figured it out, but that was the biggest thing. But every time you work on it, they make it easier and easier.
Yeah. They also give you templates for creating your cover.
And I did use the template. And they'll also create a cover for you. You can have KDP do it. I play on hard mode, evidently, so I did it all myself, but KDP will do it. They'll create covers for you and everything else.
But you're limited in what you can do there in terms of layout and everything else.
Absolutely. But if it's not your thing, hey, at least it's a viable option.
Oh, for sure. I used it for the first edition of Chicago 1893, and then very quickly changed that because it, looked like crap. Not that the newest ones are, I'm not a professional designer, but the first one was particularly bad, so it was good to be able to update that and get a more buttoned up looking cover on there. with color photography and better fonts and laying things out. I'm happy that I was able to use their tool out of the gate, but in time, you want to be able to learn new stuff.
Well, yeah, it just depends on how much time you have and how much you want to. I mean, what's important to you?
Yeah.
I mean, what qualities are important to you? I mean, if you're doing a very visual project, then obviously the visuals are important. If you're just writing text or something like that, maybe it's less important. I mean, the only visuals I have is basically my cover, and then it's all text. So, I could have done that in a lot. I could have cut a lot of corners around that, and it wouldn't have. I don't think maybe covers. I think are super important, and that's kind of a point to make. Covers can be really important because a lot of times that's what's selling your book. Is if somebody thinks the cover's cool, it's like, ooh, that's a neat cover. I like the mood, and so I think that's important. So I focused a lot on that because I wanted it to capture a certain mood, but ultimately it wasn't totally necessary. I mean, if that's a corner you need to cut, then cut it. I think it's like a fun piece. I think a lot of people like to play with the cover.
I'm with you. I like your cover. I think it looks good. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do for the second.
Trying to figure that out. Well, I'm not quite there.
I second that. I love your cover. I did get the Gatsby salute too. I really like that a lot. The only thing I have to say with using KDP's Create tool is just be aware that you don't get a physical like PDF file out of it. So if you need to go back and correct something, it's a little bit challenging. That's the only thing that I found with it. So I think my last book, what was it? AI for Brands. I think we were able to use a PDF file and avoid the problem with that challenge that we had.
I'm not clear on what you just specifically said.
Sorry, for ebooks. Yeah, for ebooks. I found using the Kindle Create challenging in terms of like if somebody spots something. I always have these great critics out there who are like, oh, you should have wrote it this way. And I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. I'll go back and change it. Then you have to go back into Kindle Create and do it again. And the other thing is, it doesn't give you a PDF copy of your book.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Wait, are you saying you wrote it in Kindle Create?
Yes, yeah, I wrote it. My first one, that was a major mistake, and I will never, ever, ever do that again.
Okay, now I'm getting.
So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Don't do that.
Well, no, I will say, like, when you're using Kindle, like, you have the option when you're making an ebook to make it a PDF. You can absolutely use a PDF. But the problem with that is if someone is reading it on their Kindle and they want to change the font size or everything, the pages won't reflow. So that's why you want to use, oh gosh, I haven't done it.
So there's three options. I know what you're talking about, Heidi. So there's three options. There's reflowable, which is good for text only. And then there is like direct PDF transfer. So, page one of your PDF is page one in the book. And then there's also one for like comic book graphic novel layout. And I've not ever done anything with that one. Perhaps in the future I will. But I haven't yet, so I can't necessarily speak to the functionality or what that is specifically doing that's beneficial there. But those are the three options in Kindle Create.
Right. So the reflowable one is, I think, it was the one that gave me a little bit of a challenge, but I won't go into why because it's an InDesign thing. So yeah, just don't be a freak like me. Don't play on hard mode. Don't use it. But
writing your book in InDesign.
I didn't write my book in InDesign. I write in Scrivener.
Oh, you did the
I love
layout though
Scrivener.
in InDesign, which is
I
also hard
dumped it
mode.
into. I do everything in. Yeah, I'm a
Just use Pages next
done
time.
now. I might, but I won't get
Just
into
save
it. It
yourself the
has.
headache.
I'm starting to understand how you spend so much time in Hitch Slap spaces, and it's because you love torturing yourself.
I don't know. You're distracting me, George. I'm getting kaflumped. But
Verklempt.
no, what I was going to say about the
It
reflow.
was a cross between kerfuffled
Yeah,
and
it's good.
verklempt.
Yeah, I am. It was, and I was that. So I was both of those. So it worked. No, with the reflow, my brain is on the reflow, right? I think when someone's reading a Kindle, you really want it to reflow because people like to adjust the font size. So if you're, going, your eyes are old like mine, you want to be able to blow it up a little bit more than, say, someone else. So I think for Kindle, you need to be able to reflow. I think personally, I don't know. I haven't read a Kindle on PDF. Maybe I wouldn't even notice. But, if anyone has any thoughts on that. Hey, Chris, welcome up to the stage. I suspect you have some thoughts on what we've been talking about.
Well, yes, I've been looking. So first of all, I have only dipped my toes in the literary area from a creative standpoint, but I've been looking at the space from a documentation standpoint because there's huge gaps. Uh, Again, from what I'm hearing here too, there seems to be gaps here as well. I've known a couple people that have kind of crossed the line between technical and that are actually authors. And I poked every time I've had a chance to see, I had the tools themselves caught up. I mean, I myself understand, I actually know the PDF format inside and out internally. And I was an early Palm guy, so I kind of know some of the EPUB and the doc stuff that came out of that. And I've just been curious if the tools have been keeping up with, from what I see anecdotally myself, it sounds like no, because I experience a lot of stuff that you're running into with ebooks myself when I pull them down.
I'm not clear that there was a question inside of there.
So the question I had is are you finding the experience with all the tools mentioned to be still bailing wire and bubblegum, or is there like a true path to go on this stuff?
I would say there is a very true path to go on, but because people are kind of coming from different skills and different tools and different operating systems and also producing different types of work. So for example, I don't think any book that is purely text. All my stuff has, graphics or iconography in line with the text, or photography. So, in that sense, like there are certain things that I want to make sure that carry over. So I produce the paperback first. That's my main focus is paperback, and my second priority is audiobook. I make ebooks purely as like a bonus round of production. Like I really don't care about ebooks. I don't sell that many of them comparatively, so it's kind of just like, well, good. I have this additional listing, but in the sense of like the reader's experience on ebook is not in like the circle of my priorities. To be honest with you,
But you're much more graphic. So
right.
like for me, I need to definitely have an ebook because it's a book, right? It's an old fashioned fiction book.
Well, I mean, all of my paperbacks have ebook components that are available for them too. But what I do is just transfer the PDF directly over one-to-one. I'm not doing additional like layout for the ebook version to be different or whatever. It's not reflowable. The page one is page one in both versions. Page 100 is page 100 in both versions. That is kind of what I'm getting after. Now, in that sense, like that really streamlines what I have to do because I'm not making two different layouts. I'm not trying to manufacture a different experience for those things. Like if people want that on ebook, that is their choice that they are making. But it's not a choice that I prioritize in terms of my releases. It's just purely something that I release because it's available to do. Dan.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not just a different experience. Like if there's different page layouts and stuff, or different numbering of pages, but also like having written for like encyclopedic sources, it makes it more difficult to cite the sources because you can't go like it's on page 10 or whatever. If it's not in every single format.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, that's true.
So it would depend on the type of, but most people aren't reading. Well, maybe that's changing. I mean, I look at ebooks as something you do with fiction or something, a story that you're reading that you enjoy. Or some certain text, but like if you've got something where you need to cite a bunch of stuff, yeah, that could be. I mean, they have to do it somehow. Oh gosh. I mean, I wonder if it rolls. I wonder if there's a way where you set it. I feel like there's a way that you could set it where it rolls.
But here's the thing too. So this is another kind of wrench in the works there. You can update an ebook,
hyperlink it,
and it automatically will update the ebook version that people have downloaded on their Kindles. So it changes it. So like if you're citing an ebook, why are you doing that? That's just, I mean, if it's only ebook, fine, but like, gosh, that is just like, look at the Internet Archive was down for a few days and is currently it's read only, in that way. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. If you really want to own something, you need to physically possess it.
You would have to cite by location in the New World Order as opposed to by page.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Hyperlinks. You put the hyperlink in, Dan, instead of a page number. That's how you'd have to do it in an ebook, right? Is that what you're saying, Chris?
Having done it, basically, it came down to you have to like cite the chapter rather than the page.
Well, you'd have to cite the chapter and paragraph and sentence, I suppose, but at that point, I guess just screenshot it and put it into the references. But again, like look at the way Wikipedia works, and there's lots of those references that they're citing on there. When you click on them, those pages do not exist anymore. So it is what it is. We are butting up against the 2-hour mark here. We've been hanging out. We've been talking manuscripts. We've been talking distribution. I think we've covered a good bit of all this stuff. Maybe we haven't. I appreciate everybody hanging out. If there are any final thoughts, final comments on the topic that people want to make, this is your chance.
Yeah, I guess my question was just from a standpoint of people that are actually in the weeds. I know for a fact in the area that I'm in, there's a huge gap.
What area are you in?
I when I do stuff, it's mostly looking to do API documentation and that kind of thing, which is still very publisher heavy. That, and I actually have kind of an actual physical book background. I used to work for a company that makes, or I guess they still make them, but yearbooks and such. And so when it comes down to PDFs, cool. I know all the internals of where the margins are supposed to be, where the page cuts are supposed to be, that kind of thing. And so I look at that aspect of it, including how it has to be bound, which is yet another problem. But what I've always seen as a gap myself, at least to go to when it comes to actually doing books or magazines or articles, was I wanted to see something that was kind of the merger between Word and InDesign, in that I could write the text in a Word-like environment. It had just a basic flow. And then I had the notion of templates for, so like the best example is I've got a magazine page, and you take like an old Omni magazine where you'd have 3 columns of text, and then there'd be an interstitial block in the middle that had like a highlighted chunk of text. And I'd want to be able to cite what went in that highlighted box and then just have everything else flow and worry about the layout separate from the text, and then, not think about it again. And that's kind of how I always thought it should work, but I've never seen that. I've either seen one of two ways. It's either you're struggling in Word, and I've seen people publish magazines in Word, which is masochistic. And then I've also seen people try to publish things directly in InDesign, where every page is laid out manually, which is also extremely masochistic. And I thought about going into the space and fixing it, but I didn't know if it had been solved in certain areas and I'm just missing what the solution is, or if there's still a gap there.
I think there's still a gap there, I think is the conclusion. There's kind of earlier on, we were talking about print on demand via KDP and Lulu. And I had said, for the first two books that I put out, I had to create a whole new layout for it, which is essentially adjusting 100 plus images inside of those books, because the size of the trade paperback that they were doing on Lulu was slightly different than what I had done on KDP initially. So yeah, I think it's not completely sorted out at this point. My guess is it probably won't ever be, but if you were to create some tool that makes it even slightly easier, that might be something to consider. The proofing process on KDP I find to be quite good in general, given the nature of the stuff that I'm doing with graphics and text and stuff like that. So, Terry.
I just wanted to say, yeah, you're absolutely right. I found that too. And, if you get stuck with KDP, I actually call their customer service anytime I get stuck. And those folks are just amazing. They're very patient. They'll walk you through it. And in one case, I remember trying to take a book through KDP and it wouldn't. I made a correction, so I uploaded again a new manuscript, and it was still showing the wrong. And I know I made the change because it was a visual change and it was pretty noticeable, but it wouldn't update. So I just called them, and they were incredible. Nice. And they were like, you know what, just we see your new document here. We're just going to manually do it for you. And I'm like, wow, I really love that.
Yeah, very cool.
And I also want to say thank you. I have to run, but Michael, Heidi, thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed this. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer too. Even if it's offline or DM me, my DMs are open.
Well, we do this every week, Terry. So you're in the club, so come and hang out, and talk shop. We usually do a rotation of stuff that's like thematic, topical. We do this workshop once a month, and trying to make it useful for folks. So next week we'll be back to like topical themes, and Heidi will be hosting. But I appreciate you taking the time to come in and talk about your book and kick around ideas with us. We learn inside of the conversation. As for today, we'll call it here. I think, everybody got hopefully something out of it. And, if you didn't, there's always a chance tomorrow. I got a space in the afternoon on writing, publishing, and authorship at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Everybody's welcome to come and hang out on that. It's posted up above in the nest, or you can dig it up on my timeline. But all the same, hey, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk again before too long.